My name is Mensah-Bonsu. I'm one of 7 British-born basketball players to play in the NBA, but I'm also one of only 2 players of Ghanaian descent to ever play in the NBA too. Seeing that statistic is why I wanted to get drafted. Not only did I feel like I had to prove to my peers and everybody else that I was worthy of this opportunity, I had to prove it to myself. This was my why. I'm gonna overcome, I'm gonna get to a level that nobody would ever imagine. Wow, growing up in the UK was interesting. I always tell people it's just like growing up in New York City, we just have a funny accent. You know, I grew up in a borough just like Brooklyn. I turned 16 the day I landed in this country. And there was a culture shock because I went from going to a public school in North London to going to one of the most expensive, richest private schools in Princeton, New Jersey. I would take the A train from Penn Station all the way to Grand Avenue in Brooklyn and walk, which seemed like 10 miles, but it was literally probably a mile and a half. But when you have 2 big duffel bags with no wheels, it's either in the heat of the summer or in the middle of snow, it's a journey. Whenever I was stuck at a bus station at 4 a.m. having to get to Atlantic City in 2 hours and I've got $14 to my name, I always challenged myself to be like, when you come out on the other side of this is gonna make for a better book. My way of harnessing any experience, everything that I was going through was by letting it out on the court. You may be taller than me, you may be stronger than me, you may be more athletic than I was, but there's one thing that you're not gonna have, is that determination and that work ethic. I would always see my high school teammates and my peers getting recruited by all these big schools, and had I told my teammates and everybody else I was going to the NBA, they would have laughed me out of that gym. Things started to turn for me my freshman year at UW. If there were 5 or 6 of us in the recruiting class, I was probably 5th or 6th in regards to recruitment. And I remember telling myself, I'm gonna go to GW, and not only am I gonna play, but I'm gonna start my freshman year. I remember we played Michigan State and Maryland on back-to-back nights. Michigan State was probably 7, and they had just played Duke 3-4 days prior to. And then Maryland was top 15. I ended up with 25 points, 15 rebounds, 5 blocks, 5 steals against one of the best teams in the country. Then we played Maryland the next day, we beat them. He was like, man, people in the crowd were talking about, is Pop's gonna go back to school? And I was like, I'm already on campus, what do you mean? And he says, no, fool. They're talking about you're gonna come back to school because you might enter the draft. Mind you, my name in the NBA had never been in the same sentence. That day forward, I remember there was 2 NBA scouts, 3, then there was 5, and then every practice, regardless of when it was, there would be people in the stands watching us. I felt like coming back to school for my senior year, I was gonna be a first-round pick. So I'm sitting there and my agent's like, you know, it's a outside chance you get drafted in the first round, but expect early second round. Lottery goes, I know I wasn't getting drafted. The 20s come, you know, fingers crossed. I'm quietly saying a prayer to see what happens, nothing. Well, okay, 59th pick comes, and it says from George Washington University. And I just like, wow, I got drafted. They say with the 59th pick from George Washington, J.R. Pinnock, they draft my teammate. And my mom called me and said when she didn't hear my name, she wept. And I go back to my hotel room and I like locked myself in there for like 2 days. Didn't answer the phone, didn't speak to anybody. I always say adversity doesn't build character, it reveals it. And you know, my character was revealed in those moments. And I remember getting to Summer League and just playing harder than everybody else. After Summer League was done, my agent calls me and says, Dallas Mavericks offer you a 2-year contract, and I'm gonna sign you from Summer League as a free agent, which back then, that never happened. I made it, I got in. There's a short list of guys who just played in the NBA. But coming from London, being of Ghanaian descent, that list is even shorter. What pushes me now, what my passion is now, and what was developed back then was making sure I utilize whatever successes I have on and off the court to help build a platform and inspire this younger generation to succeed through the game.